The village of Kotlik is a Yupik community in southwest Alaska. It is located on the Kotlik River alongside the Yukon River. The Kotlik River is the community's drinking water source. Kotlik's landfill is located along the same river upstream from their drinking water intake pump. This has caused some public health concerns within the community. Increased flooding events, rapid erosion, and poor disposal practices have led to the landfill waste being dangerously close to the riverbank and eroding into the river. It is very important for any community to manage and monitor landfill activity to minimize its impact on drinking water sources and the surrounding environment. In this video, we will be demonstrating water sampling techniques when taking water samples at a landfill and grabbing a sample from open waters. Step 1. Sampling site assessment. The first step is to do an assessment of the landfill. During the assessment, you will walk around the landfill and look for potential problem areas to document and determine your sampling sites. Look for standing water that is close to the waste and is deep enough to get a good sample without disturbing the water too much. You will need to take water samples at multiple locations within the landfill. Creating a 5-point star pattern for sampling sites is a good sampling design method. Take GPS readings of the sampling locations and write them down so you can return to the same location easily. After you've completed your assessment and determined your sampling sites, you can return back to your office to continue other prep work required for a sampling event. Step 2. Field and equipment preparation. Before heading out to the landfill, make sure to calibrate your equipment and pack everything you will need. To learn more about the calibration of your monitoring equipment, follow the link below. Once your equipment is calibrated, get all your forms and sampling bottles in order. The laboratory you're working with will provide you with all the bottles and forms you will need. Fill out as much of the info you can on the forms and bottles before heading out to minimize the amount of time spent at the landfill. And it's always easier to complete these tasks in a nice, dry, warm office than outside in unexpected bad weather or with lots of mosquitoes. Once the bottles are ready, load them in a cooler, which will be provided to you by your lab. Remember, before heading out, make sure you have everything you will need. The basic items you will need are your monitoring equipment, field notebook, data sheets, and a good all-weather pen. Your cooler or other container to hold the sample bottles, other monitoring and sampling supplies such as pH strips, GPS, sample bottles, shovel, latex gloves, and camera. Once you have everything ready to go, it's time to pack up and head back to the landfill for some sampling. Step 3. Landfill water sampling. Once you're back at the landfill, it's time to take your samples. If any of the sample sites are too shallow, you can dig a hole to make them deeper. Of course, this will stir up some sediment, so let the water settle for a while before taking the sample at that location. You might have to repeat this at each sample site. Be sure to remember to use gloves and avoid contaminating your samples. Change your gloves at each sampling site. To determine the pH of a sampling site, Place the pH strip into the water and hold it there for 2 or 3 minutes or whatever time is written in the instructions on the bottle. Remove the strip and compare it to the colors marked on the bottle. Choose the closest match to determine the pH and write it down in your data sheet. Then collect water in the sample bottles that you will send to the lab for analysis. To avoid contaminating your samples, do not touch the inside of the lid or the rim of the bottles. Gently place the bottle into the water and fill up to the line shown on the bottle. Be careful not to disturb the water too much. You don't want to collect too much mud. Once full, put the bottle in a plastic bag and place it in the cooler. Next, use your monitoring equipment to test the water for temperature, dissolved oxygen, and turbidity. Gently place the meter into the water and hold it until the readings have stabilized. Once the readings look stable, record the results in your data sheet and/or notebook. Follow this process at each sampling site around your landfill. Step 4. River water sampling. For Kotlik's project, we sampled next to their drinking water intake pump. Start off by removing the probe from the case and insert it into the water. It doesn't matter how deep you go as long as you are consistent with each sampling. A couple of feet is a good depth. Once the reading stabilizes, write it down in your notes. To protect the probe, fill the probe cup with water before returning it to its case. To collect a sample of the water, screw the bottle onto a pole and rinse the bottle at least 3 times. Once it's rinsed, lower the bottle all the way into the water to collect the sample. Take the bottle off the pole and pour the water into the sample bottle provided by the lab. Cap the sample bottle, put it in a Ziploc bag, and place it in the cooler. Now that you've collected all your samples, it's time to head back to the office and prepare the cooler for shipment to the lab for analysis. Step 5. Preparing the samples and cooler for shipment. When you get back to the office, put the bottles in a refrigerator to keep them cool until you ship or hand deliver them to the laboratory. Also remember, after each sampling, clean and take care of your monitoring and sampling equipment. When it's time to send your samples to the lab, remove them from the refrigerator and place them in the cooler. Your laboratory will inform you of the required temperature range and time frame for your samples. It is critical to follow these laboratory instructions for any successful sampling event. Use the bubble wrap provided by the lab to protect the bottles from breaking during shipment. Then place ice packs on top and around to keep everything cool. Try to fill the cooler as much as possible so that things can't shift around during shipment. Usually your lab will send you the appropriate size cooler. Place your chain of custody forms and data sheets in a plastic bag to prevent them from getting wet in case the bottles break or leak. The form should be placed in the cooler last and on top of everything for easy access. When everything is in the cooler, secure with duct tape so it doesn't open during shipment. Place the custody seal on the cooler's opening lip so the lab will know that there has been no tampering with the samples. Your samples are now ready to send to the lab for analysis. The lab you are working with will always be available to answer any questions you may have about your sampling event. Please call them anytime if you have any questions. They want the samples to arrive so they can do the analysis, and all your hard work and expense will not be wasted. So please use your laboratory as a resource for your sampling event. In conclusion, water sampling is a very important step in determining if your drinking water source or environment has been affected by your community's waste disposal activities. Koyana. For more information, visit these websites.